Let me begin tonight with the latest figures. 4,043,686 tests have been carried out in the UK, including 131,458 tests yesterday. 271,222 people have tested positive, an increase of 2,095 cases since yesterday. Sadly, of those who tested positive for coronavirus across all settings, 38,161 people have now died. That's an increase of 324 fatalities since yesterday. Our thoughts, as always, are with the family and friends of those who have lost their lives. Today's figures confirm what the Prime Minister has said. We are past the peak, we're flattening the curve. We protected the NHS and the number of deaths is falling. Over the coming weeks, we can now take careful but deliberate steps to reopen our economy. Across the country, office lights will be turned on and windows thrown open. Work clothes and school uniforms will be pulled out of the wardrobe. Shops and factories will start to hum with activity. As we enter this new phase, things will change. Businesses will need to become COVID secure to protect staff and customers. We will all need to stay alert as we go about our daily lives. And, as Britain returns to work, we need to adapt the emergency programmes we put in place to bridge through the crisis. Because of those programmes, our economic prospects are better than they otherwise would have been. We have provided tens of billions of pounds of tax cuts, tax deferrals, cash grants and discounted loans for businesses, income protection for millions of the self-employed, a strengthened safety net to protect millions of our most vulnerable people, and our job retention scheme has now supported more than 1 million jobs and over 1 million businesses. No British government, Labour or Conservative, has ever done anything like this. I believe it has made a real difference. But as we reopen the economy, there is broad consensus across the political and economic spectrum. The furlough scheme cannot continue indefinitely. 2 weeks ago, I outlined the principles of my approach. The furlough scheme will remain open all the way until October. We will ask employers to start contributing, as we also introduce flexible furloughing. And employees will see no change to their level of support. As promised, I can provide more details today. I believe it is right, in the final phase of this 8-month scheme, to ask employers to contribute alongside the taxpayer towards the wages of their staff. But I understand too that businesses and employers have been through an incredibly difficult time. So I have decided to ask employers to pay only a modest contribution, introduced slowly over the coming months. In June and July, the scheme will continue as before, with no employer contribution at all. In August, the taxpayer contribution to people's wages will stay at 80%. Employers will only be asked to pay national insurance and employer pension contributions, which, for the average claim, account for just 5% of total employment costs. By September, employers will have had the opportunity to make any necessary changes to their workplaces and business practices. Only then, in the final 2 months of this 8-month scheme, will we ask employers to start paying towards people's wages. In September, taxpayers will pay 70% of the furlough grant, with employers contributing 10%. In October, taxpayers will pay 60% and employers will contribute 20%. Then, after 8 months of this extraordinary intervention, of the government stepping in to help pay people's wages, the scheme will close. The biggest request I've heard from businesses, large and small, right across our country, is to have the flexibility to decide what is right for them. So, to protect jobs and help businesses decide how quickly to bring their workforce back, we are introducing a new, more flexible furlough. This is a critical part of our plan to kickstart the economy. The financial security of the furlough scheme has been a relief for many. But at the same time, people want to work. No one wants to be at home on furlough. No one wants to feel unable to contribute. So HMRC and the Treasury have worked hard to put the flexible furlough in place, not from August the 1st as originally planned, but from July the 1st, 1 month early. From July the 1st, employers will have the maximum possible flexibility to decide on the right arrangements for them and their furloughed staff. For instance, if you were watching at home and on furlough, your employer could bring you back 2 days a week. They would pay you for those 2 days as normal, while the furlough scheme would continue to cover you for the other 3 working days. To allow us to introduce this new flexible furlough from July the 1st, we will need to close the old scheme to new entrants on June the 30th. Employers wanting to place new employees on the scheme will need to do this by June the 10th, to allow them time to complete the minimum furlough period before then.